Andrew, how does cloud computing enable medicine to be more personalized?
Yeah, so you know, if we look at the natural history of genomics or any omics really, so it can be proteomics and transcriptomics and all these fields, the chemistry was never the bottleneck, right? So like the chemistry to do some really high throughput stuff could have always been there, but the computational power to process all that data wasn't. Or that's at maybe the assay level, but then we can add in all this metadata we think of today with connecting that genomic information to EMR data and LIMS data, laboratory information management systems. EMR is electronic medical records, so patient history, and all of this longitudinal information. Um, it's not that anybody wasn't thinking, 30 years ago, like that sounds like a great idea. It's that it was it was sort of science fiction at the time. It was the future. Computing needed to be there to be able to make that happen, and now it is. And the cloud makes that you know uh, very possible for it. Really kind of democratizes it, right? You don't need $1 billion for a crazy data center. Like you can, most companies can afford to get into some pretty serious compute hardware via the cloud.
When you're trying to understand the cloud and do all this massive compute for the personalization, and I think it makes it a lot easier to separate the data, to duplicate it, to run parallel pipelines to understand it. And then you have specifics where you can pull out to personalize it for individuals, and it makes it easier to kind of really do your research and break it down. While in the traditional sense, all your data was housed in terabytes of data. To break it down, you needed to procure more hardware, you needed to have more people to kind of expand and go to it. I think cloud computing allows you to run a lot of things in parallel with cost savings in mind.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think that there's, across these different scientific disciplines that all have their own nuances, whether it be genetics or cell biology, at the infrastructure level, we've seen in the omics era, we've seen a convergence of the problem and solution space, right? So we can use there's that scalability there, just at like a economic or industry level, where we can use a lot of the same tools to solve problems across the entire life sciences space, because the problem starts to become less differentiated there. So, we need high compute power, whether we're doing massive in silico library screening of enzymes at a therapeutic company, or whether we're doing whole genome sequencing on entire population studies in genomics, right? And those are all relying on having the computational resources to you could be sitting on Nobel Prize worthy scientific answers, but if you can't actually standardize and analyze that data, then it's as good as not existing, right? So the cloud really again makes that possible for both small and large institutions.
Andrew, do you feel, going back to our first question, the scalability of cloud has allowed everybody to enable this personalization because the data, which is massive amounts of data, and having that on premise, you can actually duplicate that data much faster and scalable versus being limited to maybe your storage constraints. Do you feel that cloud has enabled this?
Um, Definitely, or at least for the 99% of organizations that wouldn't have the resources to just have a massive war chest to throw at it, of course. So the cloud has really made this again, going back to that level that everything has been normalized to at the infrastructure level. it's it creates a similar problem for everybody at that scale. And so this is now can answer, like it's made data science as important a part of biology or protein study as the actual biology or the proteins science itself, right? So yeah, it's definitely opened this up to everybody else because it's made it much more available and affordable and accessible.